Tom Thumb is a character of English folklore. The history of Tom Thumb was published in 1621, and was the first fairy tale printed in English. Tom is no bigger than his father's thumb, and his adventures include being swallowed by a cow, tangling with giants, and becoming a favourite of King Arthur. The earliest allusions to Tom occur in various 16th-century works such as Reginald Scot's discovery of Witchcraft, where Tom is cited as one of the supernatural folk employed by servant maids to frighten children. Tattershall in Lincolnshire, UK, boasts to have the home and grave of Tom Thumb. Aside from his own tales, Tom figures in Henry Fielding's play Tom Thumb, a companion piece to his The Author's Farce. It was later expanded into a single piece titled The Tragedy of Tragedies, or The History of Tom Thumb the Great. In the middle 18th century, books began to be published specifically for children and, by the middle 19th century, Tom was a fixture of the nursery library. Charlotte Lange cleansed questionable passages and the tale took on moral overtones. Dinah Mulock however refrained from scrubbing the tale of its vulgarities. Tom Thumb's story has been adapted to several films including the 1958 George Pal musical Tom Thumb starring Russ Tamblyn. Tiny folkloric characters like Tom are known in cultures around the world. History: The Tale of Tom Thumb is the first English fairy tale. The earliest surviving text is a 40-page booklet printed in London for Thomas Langley in 1621 entitled The History of Tom Thumb, the Little, for his small stature surnamed King Arthur's Dwarf, whose life and adventures contain many strange and wonderful accidents, published for the delight of merry-time spenders. The author is presumed to be Londoner Richard Johnson because his initials appear on the last page. The only known copy is in the Pierpont Morgan Library, New York. Tom was already a traditional folk character when the booklet was printed, and it is likely printed materials circulated prior to Johnson's. It is not known how much or exactly what Johnson contributed to Tom's character or his adventures. William Foote referred to Tom in 1579 in Heskin's Parliament Repealed, and Thomas Nash referred to him in 1592 in his prose satire on the vices of the age, Piers Penniless, his supplication to the Divel. In his discovery of witchcraft, Reginald Scot listed Tom among witches, dwarfs, elves, fairies, giants, and other supernatural folk as those used by servant maids to frighten children. Tom was mentioned by James Field in 1611 in Cariat's Crudities, Tom Thumb is dumb, until the pudding creep, in which he was entombed, then out doth peep. The incident of the pudding was the most popular in connection with the character. It is alluded to in Ben Jonson's Masque of the Fortunate Isles, Thomas Thumb in a pudding fat, with Dr. Rat. Jonson's history may have been in circulation as early as this date because the title page wood block in the 1621 edition shows great wear. Johnson himself makes it clear in the preface that Tom was long known by old and young. Bachelors and Maids. And Shreid and the Young Ploughboy. The tale belongs to the swallow cycle. Tom is swallowed by a cow, a giant, a fish, and in some extensions to Johnson's tale, by a miller and a salmon. In this respect, the tale shows little imaginative development. Tom is delivered from such predicaments rather crudely, but editors of later dates found ways to make his deliverance more seemly and he rarely passed beyond the mouth. Tom's tale was reprinted countless times in Britain, and was being sold in America as early as 1686. In 1630 a metrical version entitled Tom Thumb, His Life and Death, wherein is declared many marvellous acts of manhood, full of wonder, and strange merriments, which little knight lewd in King Arthur's time, and famous in the court of Great Britain was published. The book was reprinted many times, and, about 1700, 2 more parts were added to the first. The 3 parts were reprinted many times. In 1711 William Exstaff published a comment upon the history of Tom Thumb. In 1730 English dramatist Henry Fielding used Tom Thumb as the central figure of a play by that name, which he rewrote in 1731 as The Tragedy of Tragedies, or The History of Tom Thumb the Great. A farcical take on the legend, the play is filled with 18th-century political and literary satire and is intended as a parody of heroic tragedies. The title of the Great may be intended as a reference to the politician Sir Robert Walpole. himself often called the Great. Henry Fielding's tragedy Tom Thumb was the basis for an opera constructed by Kane O'Hara. Fielding's Tom is cast as a mighty, although tiny, warrior and conqueror of giants, as well as the object of desire for many of the ladies at court. The plot is largely concerned with the various love triangles between the characters, who include the Princess Hunca-Munca, the giantess Glumdalca, and Queen Dollililla. Matters are complicated when Arthur awards Tom the hand of Hunca-Munca in marriage, which results in Dollililla and the jealous Grizel seeking revenge. Eventually, Tom dies when swallowed by a cow, but his ghost returns. At the conclusion, Tom's ghost is killed by Grizel and most of the cast kill each other in duels or take their own lives in grief. Fielding's play was later adapted into a spoof on opera conventions called the Opera of Operas, or Tom Thumb the Great by playwrights Eliza Hayward and William Hatchett. This version includes a happy ending in which Tom is spat back out by the cow and the others are resurrected by Merlin's magic. This is considered to be a satirical comment on the unlikely and tacked-on nature of many happy endings in literature and drama. In the middle 18th century, books began appearing specifically for children, and Tom was cited as the author of titles such as Tommy Thumb's Song Book and Tommy Thumb's Little Story Book. In 1791, Ritson remarked that Tom's popularity was known far and wide. Every city, town, village, shop, stall, man, woman, and child, in the kingdom, can bear witness to it. Tom's story was originally intended for adults, but by the middle 19th century it was relegated to the nursery. Vulgar episodes were sanitized and moralizing colored the tale. In Charlotte Mary Yonge's 1856 adaptation, Tom resists his natural urges to play impish pranks, renounces his ties to fairyland, and pronounces himself a Christian. As Mordred's rebellion wears on in the last days of Arthur's reign, Tom refuses to return to fairyland, preferring to die as an honorable Christian. In 1863, Dinah Maria Craik Mulock refused to cleanse the tale's questionable passages and let the story speak for itself. Mulock adds material, and in her adaptation, Tom has adventures that again involve swallowing, being imprisoned in a mousetrap, angering King Thunstone and his queen, and finally dying from the poisonous breath of a spider. Tom's tale has since been adapted to all sorts of children's books with new material added and existing material reworked, but his mischievous nature and his bravery remain undiminished. Plot: Richard Johnson's The History of Tom Thumb of 1621 tells that in the days of King Arthur, old Thomas of the Mountain, a ploughman and a member of the King's Council, wants nothing more than a son, even if he is no bigger than his thumb. He sends his wife to consult with Merlin, and in 3 months' time she gives birth to the diminutive Tom Thumb. The Queen of Fairs, and her attendants act as midwives. She provides Tom with an oak leaf hat, a shirt of cobweb, a doublet of thistledown, stockings of apple rind, and shoes of mouse's skin. Tom cheats at games with other boys, and, because of his many tricks, the boys will not associate with him. Tom retaliates by using magic to hang his mother's pots and glasses from a sunbeam, and, when his fellows try the same, their pots and glasses fall and are broken. Thereafter, Tom stays home under his mother's supervision. At Christmas, she makes puddings, but Tom falls into the batter, and is boiled into one of them. When a tinker comes begging, Tom's mother inadvertently gives him the pudding containing her son. The tinker farts while crossing a stile, but Tom calls out about the farting and the frightened tinker drops the pudding. Tom eats himself free and returns home to tell his mother and father of his adventure. His mother thereafter keeps a closer watch upon him, but one day he accompanies her to the field to milk the cows. He sits under a thistle, but a red cow swallows him. The cow is given a laxative and Tom passes from her in a cow turd. He is taken home and cleaned. Another day, he accompanies his father for the seed sowing and rides in the horse's ear. Tom is set down in the field to play the scarecrow, but a raven carries him away. His parents search for him but are unable to find him. The raven drops Tom at the castle of a giant. The cruel giant swallows the tiny boy like a pill. Tom thrashes about so much in the giant's stomach that he is vomited into the sea. There, he is eaten once more, this time by a fish, which is caught for King Arthur's supper. The cook is astonished to see the little man emerge from the fish. Tom then becomes King Arthur's dwarf. Tom becomes a favorite at court, especially among the ladies. There is revelry. Tom joins the jousting and dances in the palm of a maid of honor. He goes home briefly to see his parents, taking some money from the treasury with the king's permission, then returns to court. The Queen of Fairs finds him asleep on a rose and leaves him several gifts: an enchanted hat of knowledge, a ring of invisibility, a shape-changing girdle, and shoes to take him anywhere in a moment. Tom falls seriously ill when a lady blows her nose, but is cured by the physician to King Twaddle of the Pygmies. He takes a ride in his walnut-shell coach and meets Gargantua. Each boasts of his many powers, but when Gargantua threatens to harm Tom, he is cast under an enchantment and Tom hurries home to safety. King Arthur listens with amazement to Tom's many adventures. Richard Johnson's 1621 narrative ends here, but he promised his readers a sequel that has never been found, if published at all. In 1630 a metrical version in 3 parts was published that continues Tom's adventures. Other versions paint a different picture to Tom's end. Dinah Muir continued the tale and noted that Tom exhausted himself with jousting but recovered in fairyland. When he returned to Arthur's court, he accidentally landed in a bowl of the king's rumanty. Tom enrages the cook and is threatened with beheading. He seeks refuge in the mouth of a passing slack-jawed miller. Sensing tiny voices and movements within him, the man believes he is possessed. He yawns and Tom emerges, but the miller is so angry he tosses Tom into a river where he is swallowed by a salmon. The fish is caught, taken to the king's kitchen, and Tom is found and kept in a mouse trap until the king forgives him. The court goes hunting and Tom joins them upon his steed, a mouse. A cat catches the mouse and Tom is injured. He is carried to fairyland where he recovers and dwells for several years. When he returns to court, King Thunstone now reigns. Charmed by the little man, the king gives Tom a tiny coach pulled by 6 mice. This makes the queen jealous, as she received no such gifts, and she frames Tom with being insolent to her. Tom attempts to escape on a passing butterfly but is caught and imprisoned in a mouse trap. He is freed by a curious cat and once more wins back the favor of his king. Sadly, he does not live to enjoy it as he is killed by a spider bite. Tom is laid to rest beneath Rose Bush and a marble monument is raised to his memory with the epitaph, "Here lies Tom Thumb, King Arthur a unregistered trademark S knight, who died by a spider a unregistered trademark S cruel bite." He was well known in Arthur a unregistered trademark S court, where he afforded gallant sport. He rode at tilt and tournament, and on a mouse a hunting went. Alive he fill a unregistered trademark D the court with mirth, his death to sorrow soon gave birth. Wipe your eyes, and shake your head, and cry, alas. Tom Thumb is dead. Adaptations: Tom Thumb is the subject of several films. In 1936, a short animated version directed by Works was released, and in 1940 another animated version by Chuck Jones called Tom Thumb in Trouble. In 1958, George Pal directed a live-action musical, Tom Thumb starring Russ Tamblyn. Also in 1958, although not released in the U.S. until 1967 in a dubbed version, a Mexican version of Tom Thumb was made based loosely on Charles Perrault's Le Petit Poucet. A darker, modernized film version using stop-motion animation called The Secret Adventures of Tom Thumb was released in 1993, and Tom Thumb Meets Thumbelina and the 2002 direct-to-DVD animated movie, The Adventures of Tom Thumb and Thumbelina brought together the 2 most famous tiny people of literature, with Tom voiced by Elijah Wood. Text stories and later comic strips based on the Tom Thumb character appeared in the anthology comic The Beano from the first issue in 1938 until the late 50s. Similar tales and characters: there are many thumb-sized characters around the world: Le Petit Poucet, Durkley and Dar Currency Umling, Little 1-inch Asun Barshi, Thumbikin, Pulgarcito, Policino, Pier plus or minus Onceto, THTHTHN Florin TH1/2 NNTHTH degree Lipunaska, Pala Ear, Patchafoot, The Hazelnut Child, Klein Duimt and Pink Elch, Ha 1/4 Velokmativ, and others. See also, General Tom Thumb, Ikenk. Notes. References, Bauer, Susan. The History of Tom Thumb. The Camel-Toe Pronect at the University of Rochester. Halliwell, J.O. The Metrical History of Tom Thumb the Little. Chiswick Press. MacDonald, Margaret Reed. The Oryx Multicultural Folktale Series, Tom Thumb. Oryx Press. ISBN 0-89774-728-3. Opie, Iona. Opie, Peter, 1974. The Classic Fairy Tales. Oxford University Press. ISBN 0-19-211559-6. External links, The History of Tom Thumb from the Fairy Book by Miss Mulock, Tom Thumb and the Arthurian Tradition, Tom Thumb, His Life and Death Complete 1630 metrical text.